He just complimented the giant warrior. Now she claims him as her mate. HFY Sci-Fi Story. Ethan Cole shifted uneasily on the metal floor of the shuttle as it descended toward the alien planet. Outside the viewport, jagged purple mountains jutted into a sky streaked with green clouds. The humans had been sent to negotiate trade and secure a safe passage route for their interstellar colony ships. It was supposed to be a routine mission. It was not supposed to involve giants. As the shuttle landed on a flat plateau, a group of beings approached. They were taller than any human had ever seen, easily 10 feet in height, with thick muscular frames covered in layered armor that shimmered in bronze and gold. Their faces were partially hidden behind helmets, but Ethan could see the sharp angles of their jaws and the intensity in their glowing amber eyes. The Velrathi, as the expedition's guide had whispered, were a warrior race known for their strength, courage, and strict codes of honor. Negotiations with them had a reputation for being tense, even dangerous. Humans were small, fragile, and inexperienced compared to the Velrathi. Most people believed diplomacy would require extreme caution, and Ethan's captain, Commander Lila, Arden had made it very clear. Say nothing stupid, do nothing foolish, and above all, don't offend them. Ethan had never been very good at following instructions. As the humans stepped out of the shuttle, the Velrathi leader, a massive female warrior, stepped forward. She carried herself with a grace that belied her size, her armor etched with symbols of countless victories. Every movement seemed calculated, every glance commanding respect. She stopped a few meters from Ethan and his crew, eyes narrowing in silent evaluation. The room, or rather, the plateau, was filled with tension. Commander Arden straightened and bowed slightly. "We come in peace," she said, her voice firm. "We wish only to trade and learn." The Velrathi leader's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Peace is earned, not asked." Her words, simple as they were, carried authority that made the humans instinctively lower their heads. Ethan, however, was not the type to keep his thoughts locked away. He squirmed, glanced at the warrior, and before he could stop himself, blurted out, "Your armor. It's incredible. The way it glints in the sun, no one on Earth has anything like it." Silence. Every human froze, expecting screams, or at least a rebuke. Commander Arden's hand went to Ethan's shoulder in a warning gesture. The Velrathi leader's amber eyes widened slightly. Then, astonishingly, she stepped closer, lowering her massive helmet slightly. "You speak truthfully," she said, her voice softer now but still commanding. "Few speak truth. Fewer still honor warriors with their words." Ethan swallowed hard. I just meant it's, really impressive." "Silence is not always strength," she said. "Words carry power. You have acknowledged me?" And by Velrathi custom, such acknowledgement is not forgotten. The humans stared. They had read about Velrathi traditions, but no training or protocol had prepared them for this. Ethan had complimented a warrior, and now, something had shifted. The leader, Karathis, took another step forward. "You have honored me, human. I claim you as my mate." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Mate?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I just said your armor looked nice." Karathis's gaze bore into him. "In our culture, to honor a warrior is to accept a bond. You have chosen to respect me openly. You are now bound to me, whether you intended it or not." The other, Velrathi, muttered among themselves. Some nodded, others looked puzzled. The humans were even more confused. Commander Arden quickly stepped forward. "Karathis, I think there's a misunderstanding." Ethan meant no offense. He, Karathis, raised a hand and the murmuring stopped. "No misunderstanding exists. The bond is real. This human has honored me, and I accept him as my mate." Ethan felt sweat trickling down his spine. He glanced at his crew, whose faces reflected everything from horror to barely concealed amusement. He wanted to shrink into the ground, but there was nowhere to hide. "Mate," he whispered under his breath. "I didn't even mean it that way." Karathis's expression softened slightly. Intent is irrelevant. Courage and truth in words are recognized. You spoke without fear, and that is worthy. Ethan swallowed hard. He was terrified, confused, and a little impressed all at once. The humans had come expecting negotiations. They hadn't expected a life-altering claim from a giant warrior who could crush them with a single swing of her fist. Commander Arden took a deep breath. If this bond is as you say, Carathis, we hope it can also be a bond of friendship and alliance. We are here as partners, not to provoke conflict. Carathis studied the humans, her massive frame radiating both power and grace. Perhaps, she said finally, this human may teach us something new. Perhaps humanity's ways are worthy of respect. Ethan blinked. Somehow in his awkwardness he had just achieved something remarkable. He had, without intending to, impressed the most formidable warrior of a species 10 times taller than him, and now she claimed him as her mate. Ethan realized that his life had changed in an instant. He had no idea what being a Velrathi mate truly meant. But one thing was clear. This mission was no longer just about trade or diplomacy. It was about survival, understanding, and learning how to navigate the customs of a warrior race that could crush humans like insects. Ethan took a shaky breath and forced himself to stand a little taller. If he was going to survive this, he would have to rely on his wits, his courage, and whatever small spark of ingenuity humans were known for. One awkward compliment had set everything in motion. The journey had just begun, and Ethan had no idea how wild it would become. Ethan woke the next morning to the sounds of heavy footsteps echoing across the Velrathi settlement. The sun cast long shadows over the jagged stone structures, making the towering warriors appear even more imposing. He sat on the edge of the human camp cot, rubbing his temples. Somehow he had survived the first day without being crushed, challenged, or humiliated, but Carathis's claim still hung over him like a shadow. He could hear murmurs outside. The Velrathi elders were debating among themselves, their deep voices vibrating through the ground. Ethan peeked through the translucent barrier of the human tent and saw Carathis striding confidently among her people. Her armor caught the sunlight, gleaming like liquid bronze. She seemed completely at ease, as though claiming a human as a mate were the most natural thing in the world. Commander Arden appeared beside him, arms crossed. "Ethan, are you aware of what you've done?" she asked quietly. "You've just become part of Velrathi tradition, and you know nothing about it." "I said one compliment," Ethan muttered. "One. I didn't even mean it seriously." Arden shook her head. "With the Velrathi, it is not about intent. It is about respect. You've publicly honored a warrior, and they have accepted you. That bond is real." Ethan groaned. He could feel the beginnings of a headache. He had imagined alien diplomacy, being complicated, yes, but he had never expected this level of personal entanglement. He glanced at the communication device on his belt. His crew was waiting for him to make some plan, but what plan could there be when the leader of a warrior species declared you her mate? Outside, Carathis turned her head and locked eyes with him. The intensity in her amber gaze made Ethan's stomach twist. She was studying him carefully, as though trying to see past the human skin and into his very essence. "You will join me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You will learn our ways. You will prove your worth as a mate." I don't even know what that means," Ethan stammered. "You will learn," she replied simply. "Do not fear." Despite her reassurance, Ethan could feel the tension building. Other Velrathi warriors watched him with interest, some skeptical, others curious. Whispers passed among them. Some seemed amused. Some looked genuinely shocked that a human had been claimed without contest. The humans were equally unsettled. Several of Ethan's colleagues tried to suppress their laughter, while others whispered worries about the potential dangers. Being part of a Velrathi bond could mean trials, challenges, and tasks beyond anything a human could handle. Ethan felt, every eye on him, both human and Velrathi, and realized that the smallest misstep could have serious consequences. Carathis led Ethan to the center of the settlement, where a large stone circle served as a ceremonial ground. "Here," she said, gesturing to the smooth floor. You will learn what it means to honor a warrior. You will learn our traditions and customs. You will be tested. Ethan swallowed hard. Tested? Like combat? Carathis' lips curved slightly. Combat is one form, but the tests are not only strength. You will face trials of courage, skill, and ingenuity. If you survive, you will prove your value. If you fail, you will still be remembered, but your place will be diminished. Ethan glanced at Commander Arden, who gave a subtle nod. Remember, Ethan, she said quietly, this is your chance to show them what humans can do. We may be small, but we have minds that think differently. Use that. Ethan tried to imagine himself towering over the Velrathi or swinging a massive weapon. It was impossible. He was tiny, fragile, and far less trained than any warrior around him. But Arden's words struck a chord. Humans were often underestimated, yet time and again they had achieved what seemed impossible through ingenuity, creativity, and determination. The first trial came quickly. Carathis presented him with a massive boulder, easily the size of a small car. Move it to the marked spot, she commanded. The surrounding warriors laughed quietly. No human could hope to lift it. Ethan stared at the stone, then at the marked area, then back at Carathis. He bent down and examined the boulder closely. Instead of trying to lift it, he searched for leverage. Using a long metal rod from the human equipment, he wedged it under the boulder. Then, with careful positioning of stones and momentum, he rolled the boulder inch by inch toward the target. The Velrathi watched silently at first, then murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. When the boulder finally stopped in the marked area, Carathis' eyes gleamed. You did not lift it, yet you moved it. Cleverness is strength, she said. Ethan, panting and exhausted, felt a spark of pride. For the first time, he realized that humans could succeed not through raw power, but by thinking differently. The Velrathi may have ruled with strength, but intelligence and creativity had their own power. As the day ended, Ethan was called to rest. But he could hear the Velrathi elders talking about him. They were curious, intrigued, and perhaps even a little impressed. Carathis stayed by his side, her presence a reminder that the bond she claimed was real and binding. Ethan sat quietly, staring at the alien sky. He had survived the first tests, but this was only the beginning. He would have to face challenges far greater than this boulder. He would have to prove humanity's value in a world built for giants. And somehow he would have to survive the strange, thrilling, terrifying fact that he had been claimed by one of the galaxy's fiercest warriors. Ethan awoke to the sound of Carathis' deep, rhythmic footsteps approaching the human quarters. The Velrathi sun was higher now, casting long shadows across the rugged settlement. Today was different. Today was the first formal trial, one that would test more than just brawn. He had spent the night thinking about the boulder. The Velrathi respected strength, but ingenuity had carried him through the first test. Could it work again? He wasn't sure, but he knew he had to try. Carathis entered, her armor gleaming in the sunlight. Today, you will face the trial of skill, she announced. Ethan blinked. Skill? He asked nervously. What kind of skill? The skill to survive, adapt, and think quickly, Carathis replied. This is the first of many. You must succeed or your place beside me will be questioned. Ethan gulped but followed her to the training grounds. The area was vast, filled with towering obstacles, wooden dummies, and open spaces marked with strange symbols. Several Velrathi warriors stood along the edges watching. Among them were curious faces, some skeptical, some intrigued. Carathis handed him a small weapon, a short metal staff that barely reached his shoulders. The Velrathi weapons were massive, almost impossible for a human to wield effectively. You will face opponents, she said. Not to kill, but to test strategy and reflex. You may not have their strength, but you may use your mind. Ethan swallowed and nodded. This was it. The first real challenge. The trial began. One Velrathi warrior stepped forward, a giant over 10 feet tall, brandishing a long spear. He lunged at Ethan with a force that could crush a human in seconds. Ethan ducked instinctively, rolling to the side, then quickly grabbed a nearby rope and looped it around the Velrothi's spear. The warrior stumbled, surprised. Using his speed and understanding of leverage, Ethan redirected the attack, guiding. The giant passed a marked circle on the ground. The Velrothi observers murmured, impressed. They had expected him to be crushed instantly, but he was surviving, not by strength but by thinking fast and using the environment. The next challenge was a set of suspended platforms. Ethan had to jump across without falling. A Velrothi opponent followed, testing him at every step. Ethan analyzed the distance, timing, and balance. When the warrior lunged, Ethan leapt in an unexpected direction, using the opponent's momentum to propel himself forward. The crowd gasped. Carathis' eyes gleamed with interest. By the time he reached the final platform, Ethan was out of breath but exhilarated. He had made it through the first stage. Carathis approached, her expression unreadable. "You survived," she said simply. "You did not match them in strength, but you matched them in thought. Humans are clever." Ethan's chest swelled with pride. For the first time, he felt that humans could truly stand out in this alien world, not with muscle or armor, but with ingenuity, courage, and determination. The Velrothi elders whispered among themselves. Some were skeptical, others curious. Carathis turned to the human observers. "This human does not fight as we do," she said. "Yet his mind is sharp, his reflexes quick, and his courage is undeniable. This is the way of his people. Perhaps there is wisdom in this small species after all." Ethan's crew exchanged glances. They had always known humans could do amazing things, but seeing it recognized by a warrior 10 times their size was incredible. Even Commander Arden seemed impressed, though she kept her expression guarded. Then came the final part of the trial, a mock battle in the open arena. Ethan was to face 2 Velrothi warriors at once. Panic surged through him. How could he possibly survive? But he remembered the lessons of the morning. Think, observe, adapt. Strength alone would not win this trial. The warriors charged. Ethan dodged, weaved, and used every tool at his disposal. He pulled ropes, kicked stones, and even tumbled past the attackers to let them crash into each other. Each move was calculated, every decision based on observation, rather than force. The Velrothi were silent at first, then their murmurs turned into admiration. Carathis watched closely, her amber eyes following every move. She had claimed him, yes, but she had not expected him to navigate her world so skillfully. Humans were fragile, but Ethan's mind turned fragility into advantage. Finally, the mock battle ended. Ethan stood panting, bruised but victorious, not by overpowering the Velrothi but by outthinking them. The observers erupted in murmurs and quiet applause. Carathis stepped forward and laid a massive hand on his shoulder. "You honor me, human," she said. "Not with strength but with courage and cleverness. You have passed the trial of skill." Ethan sagged with relief. He had done it. Against all odds, he had survived, adapted, and impressed the most formidable beings he had ever met. For the first time, he felt that humans could be more than small, fragile creatures in a universe of giants. They could shine in ways no one expected. As the sun began to set over the jagged mountains, Carathis led Ethan back to the camp. "There will be more trials," she said, her tone calm but serious, "and each will test different strengths. You will need to prove your worth again and again." Ethan nodded, already feeling the weight of the days to come, but he also felt a spark of hope. If humans could survive this first trial, maybe they could survive anything. And with Carathis by his side, he would face every challenge, small, clever, and unafraid. The morning sun glinted off Carathis' armor as she led Ethan toward the open training grounds. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of alien flora and the distant roar of Velrothi beasts. Today, Ethan sensed, was different. There was tension in the air, heavier than before. "Today," Carathis said, her voice steady and commanding, "you will face your first challenge against one who questions your worth." Ethan blinked. "Questions my worth?" Carathis nodded. Some do not accept that a human could be claimed by a Velrathi warrior. They will test you, and you must respond. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had survived the trial of skill, but now it seemed that acceptance by Karathis' people was far from guaranteed. As they approached the arena, a crowd of warriors had gathered. Among them stood a massive Velrathi named Druvak, his armor scarred and dented from countless battles. His amber eyes locked onto Ethan, burning with challenge. "This is the human?" Druvak's voice rumbled across the ground. "Karathis claims him as her mate?" The words carried disbelief and disdain. "He is small, fragile. How can he honor a warrior?" Ethan swallowed hard, feeling every eye on him. He could sense the tension, the unspoken question. Could a human truly belong here? Karathis stepped between them. "He has honored me. You will show respect or face consequences." Druvak snorted. "Respect is earned, not given because of words. We shall see if he is worthy." Ethan's mind raced. He did not want to fight. He was far too small to match Druvak's strength. But retreat was not an option, not in Velrathi eyes, and certainly not if he wanted to survive this bond. He needed another way. The duel began. Druvak lunged, swinging his massive war axe. Ethan dove to the side, rolling across the ground. The impact of the weapon shook the stone beneath him. He looked around quickly, scanning the arena for anything he could use. His eyes landed on a set of large wooden poles stacked nearby. Instead of facing Druvak head-on, Ethan used speed and cleverness. He grabbed a rope from his gear, looping it around one of the poles and swinging himself to gain momentum. He dodged another swing from Druvak, letting the giant overextend and stumble slightly. The other Velrathi watched in stunned silence. Ethan realized that brute strength would not win this challenge. He had to rely on his agility, his mind, and his ability to anticipate Druvak's moves. Every step, every roll, every swing of the rope was calculated. He was not trying to defeat Druvak outright. He was trying to survive while demonstrating cleverness and courage. Karathis observed closely. Her eyes glimmered with a mixture of pride and amusement. She had claimed him as her mate, yet she had not expected him to handle this situation so intelligently. Druvak, meanwhile, grew frustrated. Each time he swung, Ethan seemed to find a new way to evade and counter, turning the arena itself into a tool. Finally, Ethan led Druvak toward a narrow passage between two stone pillars. With a swift motion, he kicked a small stone, tripping the larger warrior just enough to force him to pause. Druvak braced himself to avoid falling entirely, and in that brief moment, Ethan stood upright, breathing heavily but unbroken. "The Velrathi," crowd murmured. They were seeing something unusual, a human surviving a duel not by force but by cleverness. Druvak grunted, acknowledging the strategy. "Perhaps he is more than I thought," he admitted grudgingly. Karathis stepped forward, her massive hand resting lightly on Ethan's shoulder. "You have shown courage and intelligence," she said. "You have survived the trial of challenge. You honor me, human, and you honor yourself." Ethan felt relief wash over him, mixed with pride. He had faced the doubt and hostility of an entire warrior species and survived. Not by strength, but by thinking differently. For the first time, he understood what it truly meant to be human in this galaxy. Fragile yet resourceful, small yet unyielding in spirit. The Velrathi elders whispered among themselves. Some still doubted, but others nodded slowly, their eyes reflecting a new respect. Karathis' claim over him was no longer just a personal bond. It was beginning to symbolize something larger. Humans were different, yes, but that difference carried power. Druvak finally straightened, his expression serious. "You have survived," he said. "Not with strength, but with thought. Perhaps your people are worthy of notice." Ethan exhaled deeply. He had expected this day to be humiliating or terrifying, but instead he had survived and even impressed a seasoned warrior. The realization struck him hard. Humans could stand beside giants, not as copies, but as equals in spirit and mind. Karathis led Ethan back to the camp. There will be more challenges, she said. But today, you have proven your worth. Remember this feeling. It is the beginning of understanding between our peoples. Ethan nodded, exhausted but determined. He had faced his first real Velrothi challenge, survived, and even earned grudging respect. But he also knew that the journey was far from over. There would be more trials, more skeptics, and more dangers ahead. Yet for the first time, he felt a spark of confidence. If humans could survive and impress here in a world of towering warriors and rigid traditions, perhaps there was no limit to what they could achieve. He had survived not because he was strong, but because he was human, and that was sometimes stronger than any weapon. As the sun dipped lower, casting the jagged mountains in golden light, Ethan stood beside Carathis, ready for whatever challenge came next. He was small, yes, and fragile in appearance, but in spirit and mind he was ready to face anything. The morning sun rose over the jagged peaks of the Velrothi world, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Ethan rubbed his eyes and stretched, feeling the ache of yesterday's challenges in his arms and legs. Each trial had tested him, pushed him to the edge, yet he had survived. Somehow he had managed to impress a species that could crush humans without effort. But today, Carathis warned, the stakes would be higher. You have faced skill and challenge, Carathis said, her amber eyes sharp and unwavering. Today you will face the trial of understanding. This is a test of perception, insight, and the ability to see beyond appearances. Ethan frowned. Understanding? What do I need to understand? Carathis's lips curved slightly. You will see soon enough. Watch closely, think quickly, and do not be afraid to act differently from what is expected. The arena they entered today was unlike any other. Instead of simple obstacles or combat dummies, it was filled with strange devices, shifting platforms, and glowing panels that hummed with energy. Several Velrothi warriors stood along the perimeter, their expressions curious, some skeptical, others intrigued. Carathis gestured to a large, suspended crystal at the center of the arena. This crystal holds power. It must be secured without harm to its surroundings. Many fail this trial because they assume force is the answer. You must see another way. Ethan's heart raced. He had no idea what the crystal was capable of or what the Velrothi considered success. He glanced at Carathis, who simply nodded as if to say, "Trust yourself." He stepped cautiously toward the crystal. The moment his fingers brushed, the smooth surface, the platforms beneath him shifted, tilting dangerously. A Velrothi warrior lunged, testing his reaction. Ethan ducked, then noticed that the crystal's energy caused the platforms to respond to weight and movement. It was not a battle to fight with strength, but with observation and adaptability. Ethan took a deep breath and focused. He began to move in harmony with the platforms, letting the crystal's energy guide his steps rather than resist it. He used ropes and metal rods from the arena to stabilize shifting panels, creating a safe path across. Every move required patience, timing, and creativity. The Velrothi watched in silence at first, then murmurs spread through the crowd. Ethan was doing what they had never seen a human attempt. He was not confronting the challenge with force, but with thought. Where the Velrothi expected struggle and strength, he offered precision and understanding. Carathis's eyes gleamed with admiration. This was the essence of humanity, a species that could perceive connections others missed, that could turn danger into opportunity with careful observation and ingenuity. Suddenly, the crystal began to emit a sharp, high-pitched sound. The platforms vibrated violently. Ethan realized that timing was critical. If he misstepped, the crystal could fall and the trial would fail. He studied the rhythm, calculating each step in his mind. Then, with a carefully coordinated series of jumps, he reached the crystal, securing it in a stable platform. The vibration subsided. The Velrothi warriors gasped. Many whispered in astonishment. A human had completed a trial designed to challenge even the most experienced Velrothi. Carathis stepped forward and laid her hand lightly on the crystal, stabilizing it further. "You have succeeded," she said, her voice calm but filled with pride. "You have understood what is unseen. You have honored me and our people not through strength but through insight. Ethan's chest heaved. He had done it. He had survived the trial of understanding. But more than that, he had shown the Velrathi that humans were capable of perceiving things their eyes alone could not see. Then came a moment that would change everything. Carathis motioned toward the gathered elders. Observe this human. He has proven that humans are not weak. They are small, yes, but their minds see paths that even warriors cannot. This is a species worthy of trust, worthy of respect. Ethan blinked, stunned. This was more than he had imagined. Carathis had not only claimed him as her mate, she was now presenting him as a symbol, proof that humans had a place among the galaxy's most formidable beings. But as the applause of murmurs echoed through the arena, a loud alarm rang out. Red lights flashed across the grounds. The Velrathi looked toward the horizon where a dark fleet of alien ships was entering the atmosphere. Raiders, a rival faction, were approaching. Their intention was clear: seize resources, dominate the Velrathi, and destroy anyone who resisted. Carathis' expression hardened. Ethan, she said, this is the true test. Not of skill, not of understanding, but of courage and leadership. Will you stand with us? Ethan's heart pounded, but a spark of determination flared within him. He had faced every trial so far with courage and thought. He had survived where others might have failed. He was human, yes, small and fragile, but clever and resilient. And now, he had a choice: hide or act. He stepped forward, placing himself beside Carathis. I stand with you, he said firmly. Tell me what to do. Carathis' eyes glimmered with approval. Then lead where you can and follow where you must. Today, humanity will show its true strength. The Velrathi warriors readied themselves. Ethan glanced at the alien sky, the approaching raiders, growing larger by the second. This was no longer a trial of skill or understanding. This was the real test of courage, teamwork, and the human ability to shine in the face of overwhelming odds. And for the first time, Ethan felt that humans were not just survivors. They could be heroes. The alien fleet hung like a dark shadow on the horizon, their ships glinting ominously in the green-tinged sky. Ethan's heart raced, but he kept his breathing steady. This was no trial. This was real. Raiders were coming to attack the Velrathi. Settlement and thousands of lives, including his own, depended on quick thinking and courage. Carathis strode to the front of the Velrathi warriors, her massive form radiating authority. Defend the settlement, she commanded. Do not let fear guide you. Strike with precision and remember our strengths. Ethan stepped beside her, feeling the weight of both responsibility and opportunity. He was small, fragile, and unarmed, compared to the towering warriors around him, but he also had something they did not. A human mind trained to see patterns, anticipate actions, and turn disadvantages into advantages. The raiders' ships descended, firing beams that left scorch marks on the rocky plateau. Velrathi warriors charged forward, weapons raised, clashing with the raiders in a storm of sparks, metal, and roars. Ethan watched carefully, analyzing every movement. He noticed the raiders' formation was tight and predictable. Their large energy cannons were powerful, but they required careful positioning and left blind spots between ships. A plan began to form in his mind. He grabbed a communication device and spoke to Commander Arden. We can use the terrain to our advantage, he said quickly. The raiders' formation is strong, but they can't adjust quickly. We create traps and force them into choke points. I'll guide the Velrathi from the ground. Arden hesitated, but the situation was dire. Do it, Ethan, she replied. Show them what humans can do. Ethan sprinted toward the nearest ridge, using the uneven ground and scattered debris as cover. He pointed out weak spots to the Velrathi, indicating where they could funnel the raiders' smaller units into traps and ambushes. Carathis watched closely, following his guidance while still fighting alongside her warriors. The raiders lunged toward the settlement, expecting to overpower the Velrathi with brute force. Instead, They were met with clever strategies. Ethan had spotted large stones and loose platforms on the ridge. He coordinated the Velrathi to roll the stones and topple platforms, forcing raiders into narrow passages where their larger weapons became ineffective. Karathis fought fiercely beside him, her enormous sword cutting through attackers with precision and controlled power. Ethan realized that he and Karathis had formed an unspoken team. His mind, her strength. Together they were more formidable than anyone had anticipated. One raider ship swooped low, targeting the human encampment. Ethan spotted a weak point in its shields. Using a Velrathi-mounted launcher, he instructed a small squad to fire at the exact moment, exploiting the timing of the energy pulses. The ship staggered, veered off course, and crashed into a rocky outcrop. The Velrathi warriors cheered, but there was no time to celebrate. More ships were coming. Ethan darted through the battlefield, giving orders, signaling where to block and where to strike. He noticed that the raiders' main formation relied heavily on speed and intimidation. He used their own aggression against them, setting up fake openings that lured raiders into traps where Velrathi warriors waited hidden, ready to strike. Karathis approached Ethan during a brief lull. "You are clever," she said, her voice calm but filled with admiration. "Humans are smaller, weaker, but you see what we cannot. Your mind is your weapon." Ethan smiled despite the chaos around them. "I learned from you," he said. "Your strength gives me an opening. I just have to think ahead." The raiders, realizing they were being outmaneuvered, attempted to retreat, but Ethan anticipated this. He directed Velrathi squads to cut off escape routes, forcing them into narrow canyons. Every move was calculated, every decision precise. The small human mind guided giants to victory. By the time the sun dipped low, casting the jagged mountains in orange light, the raiders had been defeated or forced to retreat. The Velrathi settlement stood, battered but intact. Ethan's lungs burned, his body ached, yet he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had survived the real test, not with brute strength but with ingenuity, courage, and leadership. Karathis approached him, towering and magnificent. "You have honored me and our people," she said, her voice rich with approval. "You fought not as a Velrathi, but as a human, and your people are stronger for it. Today you have proven that humans are more than fragile beings. They are clever, brave, and worthy." Ethan felt a swell of pride. He looked at the Velrathi warriors around him, who were beginning to see humans in a new light. They had witnessed one human outthink and outmaneuver their most experienced fighters. They had witnessed courage and strategy that no strength alone could achieve. Commander Arden approached, clapping him on the shoulder. "I think we just earned a lot of respect," she said with a grin. "All thanks to you." Ethan exhaled, exhausted, but triumphant. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of giants. Strength was not only measured in muscle or weapons, but in mind, spirit, and courage. Humans were small, yes, but they could shine in ways even the strongest warriors could not anticipate. As Karathis and Ethan stood together, overlooking the settlement and the remnants of the raider attack, he realized that this battle had changed everything. Not only had they survived, but humanity had earned a place among the Velrathi, a place of respect, partnership, and recognition. And in that moment, Ethan knew that being human was not a weakness. It was a strength. The sun rose over the Velrathi settlement, casting golden light over the jagged mountains and shimmering armor of the victorious warriors. The battle with the raiders was over, and the settlement stood intact, thanks to careful planning, bravery, and unexpected human ingenuity. Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow and surveyed the scene. He had never felt so exhausted yet so alive. Karathis approached, her massive footsteps thudding softly on the stone ground. Her amber eyes, glowing with warmth and pride, rested on him. "You have fought well, human," she said. "You have honored me and our people. Today we see the truth of your kind." Ethan glanced at the human crew who were cheering quietly among themselves. Commander Arden gave him a small thumbs up, a silent acknowledgement of his contribution. The Velrathi elders gathered nearby, their faces a mix of astonishment and respect. A small human, fragile by size, had helped secure the victory against a force that could have crushed them all. You've shown them. Shows that humans are clever, Karathis continued, not with strength alone, but with thought, courage, and creativity. You have changed how the Velrathi see your species. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. All the fear, all the uncertainty, had led to this moment. Humans, often underestimated in the galaxy, could make a difference. They could survive, even thrive, among giants. The Velrathi gathered in a ceremonial circle, an ancient tradition that honored those who had proven themselves. Karathis stood at the center, placing her hand gently on Ethan's shoulder. The elders chanted in their deep, resonant language. Ethan could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. Recognition, respect, and acceptance. The elders stepped forward, bowing slightly to Ethan. Human, he said, his voice carrying across the stone ground, you have proven that your people are worthy. Not by strength, but by courage and wisdom. Your species is now a part of our honor. Ethan's heart raced. This was beyond anything he had imagined. A simple compliment had started it all, and now he stood recognized by an alien warrior species. As a symbol of humanity's worth, Karathis' gaze softened. You have stood beside me, faced our trials, survived challenge and danger, and shown that small beings can do great things. You honor me, human, and I honor you in return. Ethan smiled, exhausted but proud. I never expected this, he admitted. I just wanted to survive. Karathis' lips curved into the faintest smile. Survival is only the beginning. Courage, honor, and cleverness turn survival into legend. The human crew cheered quietly, impressed by what they had witnessed. They had expected danger, perhaps even failure, but instead they had watched one human demonstrate the best qualities of their kind. Cleverness, courage, and ingenuity had carried the day. Ethan looked around at the Velrathi warriors, who were no longer skeptical. Some even nodded in respect. A few younger warriors approached, curious about the human who had outthought even the most experienced among them. Ethan felt a sense of connection forming, not just with Karathis, but with an entire species. Today, Karathis said, addressing the gathering, humans have proven themselves. They are small, yes, but in spirit and mind they are strong. Let this day mark a new understanding between our peoples. Ethan felt a glow of pride. Humans were often underestimated, dismissed because of their size and fragility. Yet here they were recognized and respected by a warrior race known for valuing only strength. He realized that being human was not a weakness. It was a different kind of strength, one that could change minds and win battles without brute force. As the ceremony ended, Karathis turned to him, her massive hand resting lightly on his shoulder. You are bound to me, human, she said. Not only by our bond, but by honor and respect. This is only the beginning. Ethan nodded. He had faced trials, challenges, and a real battle. He had survived through courage, cleverness, and determination. He had proven that humans could shine even in a universe filled with giants. Then we face the future together, he said, a smile spreading across his face. Humans and Velrathi side by side. Karathis' amber eyes glimmered. Yes. Together we are stronger than either of us alone. Ethan looked around at the settlement, the warriors, and the human crew. He realized that this day would be remembered for generations, not just as a battle won, but as a moment when humans proved their worth to an entire species. It was a moment that celebrated ingenuity, courage, and the human spirit. And as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky, with streaks of gold and green, Ethan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had started with a simple compliment, faced trials, and survived a war. But most importantly, he had shown that humans were special, not because of size or strength, but because of their heart, their mind, and their unyielding spirit. In the Yairi, quiet after the battle, standing beside Karathis, Ethan realized something powerful. Humans may be small, but they could make a big difference. And sometimes that difference was enough to change the galaxy.